Court ruling on Nnamdi Kanu'S case today, 26th of September 2025. The session primarily concentrated on pending application concerning Kanu'S health issues. The judge noted that he interrupted his break to address the issue due to worries about Kanu's health. Defense counsel Onyechie Ikpeazu's son was allowed to present oral arguments regarding the health application. Kanu arrived at the court earlier in the morning, and the proceeding began with the judge confirming the emphasis on health concerns within the courtroom reflect heightened tension and anticipation with calls for justice and his unconditional release. But the hearing heightened on ongoing worries about Kanu's well-being while in detention. However, Nnamdi Kanu'S lawyers have demanded for his immediate release or a transfer to a medical facility. Before we continue with today's court ruling on Nnamdi Kanu's case of no submission, there is this message from Khalid Yazdu, a no-tenor, and according to him, he said, "History has always shown that when a state begins to fear the voice of dissent more than the crimes of injustice, it exposes its own weakness. The case of Nnamdi Kanu is no longer about guilt or innocence. It is about whether Nigeria as a political entity is capable of embracing justice without prejudice of tribe, religion, or political interest. The principle of no case submission is not a favor to the accused. It is a test of the prosecution's credibility. If after years of detention, extraordinary rendition, and countless adjournments, the state still struggle to establish a prima facie case, then continued incarceration is not but persecution dressed in robe of legality. The law was never designed to be a weapon of endless punishment without conviction. As Khalid Yazdu writes, the highest form of injustice is to appear just while being unjust. If court fails to recognize the deteriorating health of this man before them, it fails to see that justice delayed had become justice denied. Then it betrayed not only Kanu, but the very idea of justice itself. The world is watching. The judge must grant what is lawful, human, and moral binding, medical care, and the right to fair judgment. Anything less is not justice. It is vengeance hidden in procedure." And he continued with this message to all his northern brothers. And he said, "To all our people making careless and heartless remarks about this man, you truly do not know what you are saying. Continue enjoying the oppression done to your fellow humans simply because he is not from your tribe or does not share your religion. You fail to see that while they are killing you, they are negotiating with your killers. I can never rejoice over the injustice being done to this man. Never. It pains me deeply. Wallahi, I sincerely pray that this same Lord who saved Prophet Yusuf from prison will save you, Kanu. Do not forget, Kanu was the very first person to protest in London when Boko Haram and banditry were ravaging the north. He was the one who raised his voice to the world, exposing how terrorists were slaughtering innocent people freely in our land. And yet, today, some ignorant ones mock him. I refuse to believe that a true son of the north, a genuine Hausa man, could make such of the vile comments I see here. We know who Kanu's real enemies are. I won't call their name, but everyone who is wise knows. They are strangers who came into Nigeria without roots, without origin. And so I tell you, keep mocking, keep fueling division of tribe and religion, but know this, the dignity of the Hausa people will rise again, and you will eventually return the way you came, as outsiders." Khalid Yazdu. Moving forward with today's court ruling, the application seeks the transfer of Kanu to National Hospital Abuja for intensive medical examination and treatment. According to an eyewitness in court, proceedings have been paused for a short break as parties await the judge ruling on this health-related application. Attention now turns to whether the judge will deliver a favorable ruling before moving to the main issue of the day, the defense application for a no-case submission. But guess what? The Federal High Court has rejected Nnamdi Kanu'S request to be transferred to National Hospital Abuja. However, the court has directed the Nigerian Medical Association (NMA) to set up a team of medical experts to assess Kanu'S health. The NMA has been given 8 days to report on his health condition. The development comes amid ongoing concern about the detained leader's well-being and legal proceedings surrounding his case. Meanwhile, the judge is saying that the defendant must give some explanation to this court. So No case omission is overruled because there is no material evidence of extraordinary rendition submitted to the court. Now, while wants to first and foremost make a ruling after a report is submitted from some medical expert designated. Now, this case has been adjourned till 8th of October 2025. Now, let's hear from Barrister Aloy Ejimako and Barrister Maxwell Opara with regards to today's court hearing.
It's not a pronunciation of you or not you. That's why it's called no case submission. So the judge made a ruling that there's a prima facie evidence that needs to be explained. So in common parlance, it's calls on him to come and mount his own defense. But there is the other aspect of the ruling that concerns extraordinary rendition. That very one is one that confounded us, because the extraordinary rendition of Nnamdi Kanu'S is so open and notorious. Two international institutions or two separate panels of the United Nations have made pronouncements regarding his extraordinary rendition and called for his unconditional release. Nigeria is a member of the United Nations and therefore bound to consider that and implement that decision. And in Nigeria here, 3 courts have made similar pronouncements. First was by the Federal High Court of Omaya, which awarded him 500 million naira. And the Court of Appeal also pronounced that he was a victim of extraordinary rendition. And in the Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court that sent this case back to trial, reached the same conclusion that he was a victim of extraordinary rendition. And all these things are of the record. They are all in the file. And we remember when this trial was being conducted, these very documents were tendered in evidence. So it compounded us, it confused us, that the court now made a pronouncement that the extraordinary rendition had no evidence before the court, that no evidence of it was submitted before the court. And you remember, least but not the last, recently a Kenyan High Court made the same pronouncement. But well, if the court was misled by believing by mistake that these things were not in the evidence, it also said and left the door open that such evidence be submitted. So we are coming back with that evidence, and it's going to be quantum and legion.
So what about the first application on the enemy?
Well, that one too, it wasn't in the evidence that the Nigerian Medical Association has intervened. So it came as a surprise, but there's a short date given of 8 days for the NMA to submit its report. So if somebody is ill, I don't think NMA is going to change much of that. But I think the judge wanted to leave the record open to admit every possible evidence regarding this man. Our client emergent care. So whatever the court says today does not mean that the government shall withdraw back. Just 2 days ago, I wrote a letter. A private hospital has also expressed readiness to admit him here in Abuja. For security reasons, I won't mention the name of the private hospital. But the government, if the government appears to have issues with taking him to the national hospital, we have given them an option of a private hospital also here in Abuja.
So it's safe to say that the application to be transferred to the national hospital was rejected?
No, it's pending.
Yeah. One other information,
it hasn't been rejected.
Pending the Nigerian Medical Association.
Pending the admission of this report from the Nigerian Medical Association and the opinion of the Nigerian Medical Association. And if you were in court, the judge had ordered that committee or panel to be considered by the Nigerian Medical Association shall have a member from the National Hospital. So National Hospital is still in play.
Thank you very much.
One other information, please. One other information. We are saying that the judge has no jurisdiction whatsoever to try Nnamdi Kanu, because that particular issue of being a victim of extraordinary rendition must be determined, because and that one will be whether they will be the one that will confer jurisdiction on the court. And the court said there is no evidence before him. Now we are going to supply evidence before him that Nnamdi Kanu was extraordinary rendition. Then, having done that, there is no case to answer. So that you should go home with that. And if they fail to do otherwise, we will not see it as a war against the Igbos.
The government house of Abia State, they are here to propagate for the release of their son, who is being stationed in the solitary confinement in DSS dungeon.